During the time when Moses was leading the Israelites out of Egypt, there was a time when they said that they themselves wanted to hear the voice of God as he spoke. So Moses went to God and requested for God to allow the people to hear him. So when he began to speak to the people from a cloud above the mountains, they said, "Tell him to stop talking. We don't want to hear him anymore. It's too strong." It was too potent. They couldn't handle hearing God. So they allowed for Moses to then become the person who passed the message on of what God was trying to say. The reason why we don't hear from God in these modern times is similar to the reason why they didn't want to hear from God. And what it is that when God does speak to us, sometimes the things that he says is not necessarily, we're not ready to face them yet. So it becomes a powerful source of discernment, a powerful source of conviction. And because the convictions are so strong and we're not prepared to make those changes, sometimes we'll end up subconsciously tuning out God's voice through disobedience. And then we later on ask the question, why can't we hear his voice? Why don't we hear from him? But when he tells you one thing and there's disobedience that happens, or you disalign from what he's telling you, then now God stops talking. He stops giving you his energy because he's seeing that it's not getting you anywhere. It's just like if you were having a conversation with another person and they asked you for something, they asked you a question, and you answered the question and they said, "No, that's not the answer." And then they ask you another question, you're like, "No, that's not the answer." Eventually, a wise person is going to stop asking you questions, or they're going to stop answering your questions. So basically, that's what God does. In order for him not to waste his energy and time, he will allow for you to pause, to stagnate on that one thing that you asked him, that you never listened to, and he won't give you another answer until you listen to him, the first answer that he gave you. So if you're not hearing the voice of God, you may need to backtrack, and think about a time when maybe you asked God something, he answered it, and you didn't fully accept the answer. And because you never fully accepted the answer, God stopped talking, because he wants you to backtrack and remember what he said the first time. Because sometimes the lessons that God is teaching us through his voice are cumulative, like math. You know what I mean? You have to start one place in order for you to get the understanding of the next thing and then the next thing. So if you don't learn how to first add, then you won't then learn how to multiply. And if you don't learn how to multiply, then, you can't do other types of math that are more complicated that involve multiplication. You know what I mean? So a lot of times that's the reason why we can't hear from him, is because we have to start at step one. And sometimes we want to skip step one and go to step 3. And he says, "No, wait a minute, go back to step 1, listen to what I said then, and then I can expound upon that." He says, "He that is faithful in little will be faithful in much."